You're my sweetest addiction, you're my strongest inspiration, and I love you. It's true, there's no mountain I could not climb as long as you.
And the amazing CEO and founder of Kushalia UK is Ritu Sharma, a women empowerment ambassador. Give us a wave, Ritu. And a dear soul whose mission in life is to empower women, but also the belief that men have a role to play as well. We can't do it on our own. No one of us knows more than all of us. So with that said, the organization is to support women on a journey to create a life of fulfillment through their personal, professional, and their financial growth. Projects include support for victims of domestic abuse, empowering communities, personal and professional development, health and well-being. And within the health and well-being sphere, we have a dance wellness group and a what we call Let's Talk Happiness group, where ladies get together and really bond, bringing people out of their homes to communicate with one another. And these are done on a fortnightly basis. So that's a little bit about Kushalia UK, a little bit about me. I'm Carol Edmondson, and I am a volunteer with Kushalia UK, and I have been for nearly 4 years now, which I thoroughly enjoy. So my other, I'm a public speaker as well as a network marketer, and I just love what I do. I came into my own back in 2016. So Ritu will say a few words later on, but right now, if I can ask those who are not speaking to mute their mics before we get, as they say, the show on the road. And can I also say questions will be taken at the end once all 4 speakers have spoken and I open up the floor for Q&A. So there'll be an opportunity to interact with our speakers. And kicking us off right now, I'd like to introduce you to Sanna Sofia Kettunen. And Sanna is a graphic brand designer and emerging entrepreneur. She draws from her background in early childhood education to fuel her creative ventures. As a founder of Sanna Sofia Design and co-founder of Laudian Creative, she specializes in helping heart-centered entrepreneurs build confident, joyful, visual brand identities that authentically reflect their essence. Her book, The Best Is Yet to Come, Rediscover Who You Are, stems from her own healing journey, aimed at guiding others towards self-awareness, self-love, and self-expression through her social media presence. Since 2019, Sanna shares her empowering messages, encouraging others to align with their hearts and express themselves authentically. Her mantra, know who you are, love what you know, and express yourself accordingly. So, Sanna, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Carol. Lovely to be here. Thanks for the intro. I'm going to put my alarm on for 20 minutes. All right. Firstly, I just want to say that I don't very much share my story, and I'm all about living in the present, and that is where my focus has been to just a way of being and enjoying life. I know that is the key, but obviously I would not be here if it wasn't for my story. So it's only appropriate to share it, what has led me here. But I will let you know also that some parts of my story are still unfolding. And although I got the most important thing for myself out of my journey so far, and that will get me through the rest of it, I still have ways to go, and you will hear now what I mean with that. But first, I want to just let you know a little bit background about me, that my story really has been about love and connecting back to my truth, something that I never even thought was possible. And just to get you an insight that connecting back to that inner child that we all hear about and read about, and many of us are fortunate to know about it, that's what really happened to me. And I recalled that little girl who I used to be when I was little, back with nostalgia throughout my life, but very shortly, because I felt so sad of thinking that I can never get that feeling and that sense of peace and just easy playfulness, creativity. I can never get that back because of everything that had happened in my life that had taken it away from me. And who I was as a little girl, the essence who I've connected back to, was extremely like loving life, knowing already when I was little that love was the thing. I loved my family, I loved friends, connecting with people. That was super easy for me to make friends with anyone. At the same time, I was extremely intuitive, extremely aware, and I loved spending time with myself, being in the nature, doing creatives, daydreaming, just, doing, like, being comfortable on my own, but also just feeling safe with people, but also like in my own company. And it was that feeling of safety within myself that I started to lose because of things that were happening in my environment when I was little. I was exposed early on in my childhood, in elementary school age, to a lot of substance abuse. There was alcoholism in my family, and a lot of smoking, substances were just norm, really. And my father was extremely alcoholic and very absent from my life. And that was something that I felt very sad about and afraid about. And I also had a lot of guilt and shame I was carrying as a result of everything I was experiencing. And I was also exposed to things that any child shouldn't be exposed to, like sexual content too early, and things that were not healthy, horror movies and stuff like that, that for a highly sensitive girl just freaked me out completely. And there was a trauma that happened, a sexual one. I'm not going into nature of that more, but that was the one thing that was my biggest pain point and something that I suppressed from happening, even if I knew about it. And I was like, I can never share this to anyone, but I don't want to carry this inside of me. And I was only, I think, 8 or 9 years old. And I remember that was the moment when I went to my room and I felt like I cannot relax or feel safe again. And I was so upset because I felt like I screwed up, and I can never tell this to anyone. I'm going to prison, and I just want to get it out, but I'm too afraid to tell anyone. I got this out when I was 35 years old after a series of events that led me to work on myself and heal. Fast forward, just growing up, I was very much starting to lean on people. I needed to have other people around me to feel safe, to direct my ways of being, to show me how should I be. I was very much still social and very popular amongst friends, and I got along with everyone really well, kind-natured, but at the same time very insecure. And I was hiding that all the time, all my feelings of how I was feeling. And I'm really good at reading cues, what was acceptable and what was not. And I was about 13 years old when I first was exposed to alcohol. I was super active with sports and played football, and I was very good at it. So I was already playing with women quite early on, and I wasn't older than 13 when I had my first drink, and it was half a bottle of small vodka. And I remember that I was extremely afraid that I didn't want to drink because I had seen how adults in my family changed, and I felt still that I wanted to fit in with my friends. So I did it, and I just remember that I felt this relaxation come over me, something that I never knew I could feel. And I was never like an alcoholic in that way that I would have drank it every day, but I was a party girl. And whenever I could join a party, or there was a reason for it, a home party, or you know, something happening, I would always be there. And I had a difficult time with portion control, but in many ways, very double life I was living, because I was very athletic and taking care of my health. But that was one thing, that one outside substance that could make me feel a little bit like at ease, and you know. And when I was 15 years old, that's when I got the biggest addiction to my life that became really my best friend. Horrible to say, but I was so addicted to it, and that was a smokeless tobacco, of all things, that you put under your lip, and it has extremely much nicotine in it. And that was something I found in our freezer when I was like 15 years old at home, that one of my older siblings were using. And from the first time when I tried it, I never felt that relaxation throughout my whole body. And I was like, this is like, I cannot be without this. And I was super addicted to this all the way till I was like 37 years old, and used it and hid it from so many people. My family knew about it, my close friends knew about it, my intimate relationships knew about it, but I was having this facade that I was super healthy and stuff, and I was working with children, and I was even a physical ed teacher and health educator in high school for a while, and was talking about the substance abuse, like all the negative effects, but I was using it too. And it was very normal in the sports circles to use it, because smoking would not be good for the lungs. So that was one thing that I became one thing that I was hiding and super ashamed of, but I could not be without it. And now this is like, I'm going like, this taking extremely much time when I'm saying this, but what from here, hold on, the one thing that I was looking for most when I was like little was to find my dream partner. I was really consciously looking for love, and I wanted nothing more than to be a mom and to have a family and to find my man of my dreams. So I had extremely difficult time to be alone. Either I was in a relationship since I was 13 years old, had a boyfriend, or then if I wasn't, I was planning for the next one to meet the next one. And I had always boyfriends or was on a lookout. I didn't have a lot of time in between. And when I was 19 years old, I went to Canada as an au pair. And that's how I met my first husband, who was 7 years older than me at the time. And fell in love, but was not long in love, and was very much wanting to live like, you know, still like a freedom, and I got into university after the au pair thing in Canada too, and I just wanted to like have that sense of freedom. So but I could not leave that relationship even if I wanted to, and got pregnant, and then because of the result of that, I was asked to get engaged, which I said yes to because I felt I had to. I was 21 when I got pregnant, not at all ready for it, even if it was my biggest dream ever to have my child. And I stayed in that marriage or relationship for 9 years, and didn't really have the feelings that I should have had ever, and I was extremely much reacting to feeling stuck in it too, and I was many times being unfaithful when I was drinking, gone out to party. That was my way of like just hoping to get out of it, and I was always forgiven because I was unfaithful, and I always had the need to clean out and be honest. So I always came clean, and this happened. I was always forgiven, and I was wishing that I hope it would be the opposite and I would leave, but I don't want to be the bad guy. It ended, we had 2 children together, ended after 9 years in a really nasty way of my behavior, having a long weekend away that extended longer than it should have, and I was extremely intoxicated, came to back home, and that was the end of it, and totally understandably so. And I was, after that, having to just go through all that, but at the same time, that's what I wanted, to just get free from that marriage. But it didn't take more than maybe 3 months, and I found my next husband to be in a bar, and that's how I also had found the first husband. And everything went extremely quick. I wasn't obviously had processed the first marriage even, and moved in, was extremely active with my children at the time. I had more custody of them than the father had, first husband. And there were many warning signs already from the beginning. But after 4 years, I got married, second time around. And basically after that time, when I got married, things started to change in a way where I understood that this is not okay, that I was being extremely controlled, and became pregnant again. And I didn't want to be pregnant because I felt within me that I had so much that I was doing all the time at home with the children, didn't have the help I wanted and support that I don't want in this relationship, that there's something is not right to have a child. And my third son was born. And after that, things started to change even worse. And I really wanted to get out of the relationship. And it was not easy, but finally we parted ways. But his behavior I was very scared, like extremely manipulative and extremely controlling and suppressing me. And I wanted nothing more than just to begin again and have a new beginning with the boys, and just a friendly solution to everything. That's what I always wanted to. with all of my relationships, but I wasn't given that. And in the midst of, and now I'm not saying that who is here, like the reason behind, because I don't know, but in the midst of the separation, I also became aware at the same time that my privacy was being tampered digitally in a way where my social media accounts, my emails, the phones, that there was something that somebody was getting into them, but it was happening so smartly that no one would take me seriously. And also I was so fear-driven at that time when things started to happen that it completely backlashed on me. And I was taken to the psychiatric ward after a chain of events by my family, saying that I am basically like losing it, like, and our sister needs help, and that she needs medicine and stuff, and she thinks that this is happening and it's not happening. And I was so afraid and had no like sense of power, like that I can talk to myself. And I was told that if I say these things that I'm going to lose the children. And I thought that I just had to, like, you know, go with it. And I was put into the system, and I was there on under surveillance. I had to go on like regular checkups for, I think, a period of 7 months or something. And not even once during this time was any of the hospital professionals affirming me that I had gone through emotional abuse. In all my records, it said that I was hallucinating, and that this is what she is claiming. And it's like, was extremely, felt just like this is not how it should be. And I felt like no one was like taking me, believing me or taking me seriously. And it was very difficult for me to go to police and claim that things were happening. I was afraid of going there. But I went there many times from 2015 forward to, I think the last time was like only a year ago or something that I've gone there. And we're always said that you don't have enough evidence, or what you are saying is so big that it only happens in movies. But what had happened was that I was completely locked out of social media accounts. My daily norm years back was that I lost access and had to send pictures of my passport, and there I got all the time notifications on my phone that I requested too many verification codes, and I never got any on my phone. And there was like I could not have any what is it called, like location services on my phone. It would locate, if I went running or something, it would locate that I'm in Africa when I was in close to Helsinki, my home city. And I could not listen to audiobooks or any music because the sound would not work. And there were so many things that were happening that I could like write a book about it, like, but I was in such disbelief for, and now it's 20 minutes and I didn't get any. But I've talked 20 minutes, my alarm was going.
Carry on, carry on.
All right. I'm trying to like compress this. I basically from 2015 to 2018, I was screaming from help from the outside. I did everything I could. I knew that I had to like get help, and I went everywhere with all all the assets I had. It didn't matter how much it would cost. Fortunately, I had inherited from my grandfather an apartment that I sold, and that all the money went for me to just get security security companies to help me to get new devices. I think I've had over 80 different devices and routers and prepaid like numbers and everything throughout the years for me to get time to just heal, to have been present with my children who were really super little at the time when this was all happening, to get to therapy. I went, I think, to 8 different traditional therapists, and none of them were really believing me. None of them felt like really that this is the one, but I went there just to have somebody to confidentially speak to, because I had no one. I first opened up to my friends and to my family, but I wasn't believed. And unfortunately, many turned out that were not like, since childhood, like friends that I had thought that they were. So my whole like understanding of what is friendship do like completely shifted. And I, in my powers, did everything that I could do, but I also escaped a lot of responsibility in those years and was like hoping for the rescue to come from someone coming to rescue me. And had still like unhealthy choices that I did. I escaped going on trips where I was like obnoxiously drunk, you know, just to get away from like the home situation when I didn't have the children, and to escape just temporarily. But obviously it wasn't a solution. And I got into a few relationships that I should not have got into, but I just needed to feel closeness, safety, wanted somebody to hold me and help me, and were not healthy relationships. 2018 was the catalyst year. I reconnected with my high school boyfriend, and it was a short relationship, but he helped me with that relationship to really remember who I was as a young girl. And he also got me to understand that I didn't love myself. And he also opened up my heart enough that it really hurt, really, really hurt when it ended. And it was the catalyst to take me to the year that was the most meaningful to me. I had moved away from the house that I was living at the time, gave away basically most of the possessions that we have had, just to start again. And I took a 1-year break from social media, left all those accounts, Facebook, Instagram, everything I was using, WhatsApp, because I knew they were compromised. And YouTube was the only one that I used for just to strengthening myself up. Started meditating and reading about and listening about spirituality and all these things, because that was also the time when I did all these things and started to take personal responsibility that I have to be my own support system to myself. That's when I understood I was connected. That was my spiritual awakening, and the most beautiful synchronicities came to show me that I wasn't alone. And after that year, in 2019, I got back on social media through an amazing business group in England. And for the first time, I felt like I was connected, and I was united with people all around the world who was like really encouraging and believing me to speak and share my message, even if I knew nothing about business or how I was going to do it. But getting back to social media wasn't easy. It took me over almost, I think, a week to get to have a connection on Facebook, to have a live, and the shadow of like with the tech and everything was still there in many ways. And still today, I have work notifications I don't get on my phone and things that I know that this is not how it should be, even if I'm not a techie. But I am going to now kind of like leave this to this by saying that no matter what it has been, I am so blessed and so grateful for my journey, because I wouldn't change a thing, because the way I feel and perceive and what I believe about life, about the world and about myself, I never knew it was possible. And that has got me through everything, and it has made me appreciate everything so much. And it has me to look forward to everything in life too. And I know that this is something that I'm meant to get through, and that I was meant to express myself and do the book and find the creativity again that I had as a little girl. And yeah, so that is what I'm gonna end this with. I will say this though, before that I did get in 2020 still in a long distance unhealthy relationship where I was really like, I thought I wouldn't do that, go there anymore, but I did. And that was like a major lesson for me to really reflect that where do I lose my sense of self? That, okay, it's again into an intimate relationship. And with my own book, I healed. So that is like quite something, I think. So thank you. I'm so sorry for have got over time.
Oh, big hugs, big hugs. And thank you for sharing so vulnerably, Sanna. Seriously, thank you so much. You'd be
You have
able
a
to help
fantastic
so
story.
many people, so many people with your journey and your experiences. And we're all on a journey of learning and growing and still finding out who we are, what makes us tick. So thank you. And I'm sure there'll be questions when we open up for Q&A. So be ready.
I am, and I'm actually missed out something that I wanted to get out of my chest, and I can kind of weave them in there, I'm sure, if there's
Yes.
any questions.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanna. And for our second speaker this evening, it also gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Ed Flanagan. Ed has triumphed over addiction and criminality, finding his way out at 50. Now at 66, he's sharing his recovery journey with prisons and police services. 13 years sober. Collaborating energizes him, and he's passionate about supporting others' rehabilitation. Though society labels him disabled and a pensioner, he rejects these titles. Instead, he embraces being a recycled teenager. I just love that. I am one of those too. Overcoming challenges and living life to the fullest. Let's defy labels and celebrate resilience together. Love that, Ed. The floor is yours. Take it away.
Well, first of all, thank you, Sanna. I hope I pronounced it right. It takes courage to be honest with yourself, and especially in public. And listening to your story, I'm not going to really refer to my notes. I identified a lot because I go back to the beginning. I was born in 1958 in Ireland. In 1961, we moved to England. I'm one of 9 kids. My father was absent. He really, from the age of 10, though I witnessed his alcoholic behaviour and his aggression. At 10, my elder brothers were of an age where they could deal with him and they chucked him out. And I didn't really find that traumatic, them chucking him out. I was relieved, you know what I mean? And my mum, I've been influenced by strong women throughout my life rather than men, because men to me couldn't be trusted, and I had to be aggressive towards other men so that they couldn't see the fear in me. Because from the age of 10, I was sexually abused, and I went to secondary school and I was dyslexic and it wasn't diagnosed. So I was marginalised within the school system. I didn't tell anybody about my abuse. And so by the age of 13, I've been carrying this trauma of sexual abuse, not fitting in mainstream education. So I started to play truant, and I made the decision at 13 that I wasn't going to follow anyone's rules. So I stopped going to school, hung about the streets. At age of 14, I dealt with my abuser so he couldn't abuse me or anybody else. And I carried the anger for that abuse around, and it turned me into an angry young man. So between the ages of 15 and 50, I served 20 years in total in prisons. As I said, men to me were not to be trusted. So my experiences as a child influenced the man I became. And I lived within the criminal subculture 24/7. My criminality was fueled by my addiction to alcohol and drugs, which started about 13, 14. And I soon came to believe that money was control. If I had money and I stole enough money, I could control my environment, the people around me, the drugs, the alcohol. It was all controlled to me because I didn't want to invest emotionally in anybody or anything. And that enabled me. Certain type of woman was attracted to me because of the way I behaved. I now realize they were just as broken as me. So by the age of 50, my learnt behavior had turned me into somebody who wasn't very nice. My addiction fueled my offending. My offending was tied up to my addiction. And at the age of 30, whilst in prison, a teacher said, I think you're dyslexic. And I said, what's that? And they explained to me, and I learned coping strategies for the first time. I wasn't made to feel bad in a formal educational setting. So I learned coping strategies, and that was the beginning of my self-education. And so from 30 to the age of 50, I educated myself in the social sciences, psychology, understood my surroundings, why I behaved like I did, my conditioning. And so I had all the tools internally to change my life if I could give up my addiction. So 13 and a half years ago, I got and stayed sober. But my journey began about 17, 18 years ago. Decided to leave crime, and I decided that the key was putting my addiction down. So, and I'd done about 15, 20 rehabs. I was a professional rehabber. I could spout all the terminology, and I used that to manipulate people because that was still my mindset. And it took me 5 years to get and stay sober. but I learned a lot. And then 13 and a half years ago, I got and stayed sober. And I put the booze down, which was my primary drug. And as soon as I did that, my primary drug became what was my secondary drug, which was cocaine, heroin, cannabis, tuna, or whatever could change my mood. But the first 5 years of my recovery were a nightmare, but I learned so much. And I really related to you, Sanna, because I knew that I had to go and get counselling to deal with the underlying issues that kept my addiction in place. And that was talking about my childhood abuse, my criminality, and the first 5 years were really hard for me. But I learned a lot, as I said. Last 7 years has been amazing. Last 4 years have been a dream. But that's because I'm 13 and a half years down the road in recovery now. And my recovery, my sobriety comes before everything else. I've got a grown-up daughter. I love her more than anything in this world. I can't get sober for her. I never could. I had to get sober for me. So I put my sobriety before my daughter, before my brothers, my sisters, because if I don't, then I will fail. I never, ever forget my sobriety is the key to everything in my life now. My recovery is my work, because now I run my own company, Edmund Flanagan and Co. It's a CIC. It's called, and it's about being creative digitally. I now produce podcasts. I'm a digital artist. I've got a YouTube channel which I haven't gone public with. I've done about 250 videos of, I don't know, 3 minutes or less. But that was my therapy. 4 years ago, because my hands became crippled, I couldn't draw. I was a portrait artist all my life. I couldn't draw. I couldn't play guitar because I was a musician. So I had to find another way to express myself, and digital art was that. But it was my therapy, because all my videos are about issues that I've had to resolve or deal with or overcome. So from dyslexia to childhood abuse. I kept my secret of my abuse until the age of 60. I never told anyone. And then I told my family, because I was then ready to go out and make videos and encourage other kids to speak up. So that's got me to this place where I am now. Digital creatives, I've got some amazing friends who are all really inspiring. I've got some great contacts in the creative world and in businesses. And they're all people like myself who were once naughty, put down the criminality in their lives, and are now running their own successful companies, but more important, they're successful in life, because like myself, they've had to deal with the trauma of their childhood, but through an adult's eyes. And I think anyone that goes through that, yeah, fair play to them. It's the only way. So I don't know how long I've spoken for. How long is it? Anyone got an idea how long I've been speaking?
Nearly 10 minutes.
Oh, is that all? I thought I'd been speaking for an hour. Yeah, so roughly, I'll tell you about my company, Digital Creatives. I use people, I'm not an IT course. I run courses. I'm in talks with prisons to run courses for people who normally get left out through dyslexia or they're neurodivergent in some way. I don't teach IT. I teach people to be creative with their knowledge of IT. And that might be podcasts, digital arts, portrait arts, musicians. I work with a company in Manchester. I have access to the best recording studios in the country. So I try to engage with people in prison, tell them my story. Most people find my story, it's a safe story. It's got a happy ending. So people like a happy ending. They like somebody who overcomes things. So my work is not related to my criminality or anything to do with that life. It's related to what I do now and what I've been doing for the last 16 years, and that's learning about myself and realizing that I'd learned enough creative processes, whether it be podcast, digital art. I'm a musician, I'm a songwriter, and I worked with some truly amazing people, and they're all really inspiring because of their backstories. And I'm a great believer in saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. My friends are amazing people because I surround myself with people who make me feel good about myself. My self-worth comes through my work and what I do. It's not an ego thing. It's really humbling. I think I can be brutally honest in the subjects I talk about, without being crude or crass or too. It's not about the videos I make. It's not about the quality of the videos. It's about the message. It's about talking about subjects that are, I call my videos conversation pieces because they open a conversation, whether that's dyslexia, sexual abuse, addiction, criminality, rehabilitation, 12-step programs, because not to do with business, I like to give back and pay it forward, and that's part of recovery. It's it's a philosophy. 12-step recovery is a philosophy that you engage with for the rest of your life. You don't realize, oh, I'm working on step 1 or on step 9, where fearless and moral imagery. You don't think about it in terms of working a 12-step program, but the 12 steps contain everything you will need to deal with emotionally in your recovery. And if you always remember that, then you can't go far wrong. I don't do anything that stresses me or that I don't enjoy. And that's the basis for my recovery. So I'll shut up now because I've gone on a bit. But thank you.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Ed,
Yeah.
are all your videos on YouTube?
Yeah, if you type in Ed the Head Flanagan on YouTube, you'll get my channel. I haven't gone public with it yet. It's got about 250 videos. Because when I decided I want to be a digital artist, I had to find a way to learn it that I couldn't learn on YouTube or anywhere because of my dyslexia. So I got an app and I learned it inside out. And the last 4 years is that progress. My first videos from when I first started are really crude, but I love it. It's all part of my process. But my videos were therapy for me. The reason I did them because it was talking about subjects, and the more you talk about what's ailed you and what's caused you grief in the past and led to addiction, the more you talk about it and express it, whether it's to a digital setting. Every time I make a video, I'm thinking about the issue that the video is about. So you're taking the power out of what used to be an issue and caused you to react in a negative way. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. I'll try and put the link in. Ed
The Head Flanagan.
Ed the Head Flanagan.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
a character I created anyway. Yeah.
Awesome.
Any
Thank
comments
you.
on life through everything, but this character can do it, whereas I can't. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ed. And again, thank you for your vulnerability too. This is a platform where speakers can unashamedly share them. It isn't about being here to impress anybody. So thank you. And so now we have, and I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for our speakers when we open up the floor for Q&A. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to Steve McElmurray, or Steve Mack. And Steve Mack, a man who seeks connection despite battling inner loneliness and doubts about his worth, even amidst family and professional obligations. Despite facing suicidal thoughts in his past, he now advocates for mental health awareness, having found freedom through faith and self-reflection. Having experienced social anxiety and depression, Steve is able to empathize with those who feel judged or marginalized. Through his journey, he's learned to recognize the inherent value in himself and others, striving to uplift those around him. Despite life's challenges, like a broken crayon, he continues to color his world, and he believes you can too. That is so lovely, Steve. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be an interesting experience. I haven't really given speeches before. I'm used to just having conversations. The last time that I was suicidal was in 2020. That's the last time I had a plan for being suicidal. My plan was, this is how black I was. I was an ER nurse who was going to be working every day with people coming in with complaints about being anxious and depressed and suicidal ideation. And I was going to help them. And nobody knew that I brought a gun with me for that purpose. So as a gift from my wife, I was on a bed in the room I was renting. So I was out of state. I was what we call a travel nurse. I don't know if y'all have those in England, but I was a travel nurse. So I'd go to a place for a few months at a time, take a spot on their schedule, and then I'd just go to the next place. And I'd been doing that for, well, it'd been a few years by then. I did it for a total of a little over 6 years by the time I stopped. I was gone from home more than 300 days a year. So I was married, but, well, my wife was married, but she was single because I was gone all the time. And my kids didn't have a dad. Right. Anyway, so I'm sitting on the bed in this room that I'm renting, looking at the gun that I'm going to use. And I saw the irony. There's no humor really, but I saw the irony in the gun that my wife had bought me for self-protection was going to be found by a stranger after I had used it for self-destruction. My plan was to go down to this job. I was going to make some money, pay off some bills, set my wife and kids up as well as I could financially, come back home get off the interstate. In the US, we have an interstate system. So I was going to get off of that and take just, small local highways. And through Iowa's between where I live and where I was working. So probably in a cornfield, because in the US, we pick on Iowa for just making corn. And I was going to go for a long walk, make a loud noise. That's the end of it. That's my plan. Anyway, I'm sitting on the bed looking at this gun and thinking about that when I got interrupted by what I call the little voice guy. And I got interrupted by the question was, I wonder how valuable you must really be. Which made me angry. One, it's a completely different thought than what I was thinking about then. And I don't particularly feel valuable. I don't particularly feel like I have any worth. So that was my answer. I was angry about it, like, well, not very valuable. So at the time, things are better now, right? But at the time, this is 2020, I don't have a good relationship with my wife. I don't have a very good relationship with either of my kids. I've got friends at home, but nobody calls me. I'm gone for 300 days a year. When I would come home, sometimes I would see some of my friends, like at church and so on, but we'd hardly ever get together. And when I was gone, no one called me. So when I was on the road, I was just alone all the time, locked in my own head. That's an unhealthy place to be for anybody, just locked in your own head. That's an unhealthy place to be. Especially if you have a brain like mine. So I don't feel particularly valuable. Anyway, the little voice guy says, well, it seems like you must be pretty valuable, because it seems like Satan has got you to be your very own worst enemy. How would you respond if somebody else pointed a gun at you? Well, that's happened to me before. And so I thought about the time that happened to me, and I expressed my displeasure to the guy who had pointed the gun at me. It was mostly nonverbal communication, but we worked it out. I got the gun and he laid on the ground. So I wasn't calm about it at all. I'm like, I would be very angry. Right, that's what I'm thinking. But here you're sitting holding the gun, thinking about the day when you're going to point the gun at yourself and pull the trigger. And that's how it seems to me like Satan has got you being your very own worst enemy. I didn't like that thought, but the logic worked for me and I couldn't get away from it. So that began really me working on myself, who am I as a person. The very first time I was suicidal was in 1997. I was 24 years old. I was sitting in the back of my semi in Connecticut on the East Coast in the US. And little voice guy interrupted me that time too. I was in the process of taking up slack on the trigger. I'm looking at the bullet that's going to end all this. I'm taking up slack on the trigger. There's just about to be a loud noise. And I get interrupted with, are you still curious what's in that book? I wasn't thinking about a book then. I was watching the bullet. Like, well, I wasn't thinking about that. So the voice said that I also sometimes think it's not fair. I ask patients all the time, do you hear things or see things that other people don't see or hear? So I can appreciate it when they're like, well, I have kind of a conversation in my head. Yes, I understand. But anyway, so that conversation went like, well, if you read the book first, you still want to do what you're doing now, then you still can. But if you finish doing what you're doing, you won't be able to read the book. So if you're still curious what's in it, you might want to read it first. Again, that logic made sense to me. And so I started reading the book. The book was Robert Schuller's book, Self-Love. Today, I have no idea what's in it, or even how I got the book, but it had been in my semi. By the time I'm just about done reading that book, I got a call from my dispatcher to go and pick up a load. So then I didn't have time to kill myself then, because I had both purpose, I had work to go do, and I had responsibility. And I had value. I had value to my dispatcher, who was relying on me to go and pick up this load, right? So of all the things I've done wrong, the thing I've done well has always been a good workaholic. Then over the years, I would do things to look better, because if I did the right things, then I would be right. If the things I did were successful, then I am successful. So I finished driving a truck. In fact, I got finished for me. I got freight delivered. I got freight delivered really quickly. So in 2000, I got a lot of fines. No, that's not true. When was that? 1999. I got lots of fines. Anyway, finally got my license revoked. It had been suspended a few times. It finally got revoked. And I had never wanted to go back to Wisconsin, also in the Midwest. So in the US, it's the next state over to the east from where I live. And I had never, in fact, I wanted to go to Wisconsin so little that when I was a truck driver, I refused loads that went to Wisconsin. I just didn't go. I did not take that load because I didn't want to go anywhere in the whole state. Well, now I had to because I was suddenly homeless. I lived in the back of my truck, and I can't drive anymore because my license got revoked. And so I went back to Wisconsin, to Madison, the city I never wanted to go to ever, and lived with grandma. So I'm 27 years old, and I'm the picture of success. I'm basically homeless. I live at my grandma's house, just like I did when I was a kid. I don't have a driver's license. The only reason I have money is because I haven't burned it yet. And no job, like nothing. And I'm in the city I do not want to be in. Over some months, I got connected. I felt like I had to go to church because I live at grandma's house. So she and my aunts would talk about it, and I was raised in church, so I feel like I have to go. So I went out of obligation. But I'm not going to go to their church. I'm going to go to my own church, not my church, but I'm going to go to a church or I'm positive no one will know me. I can just duck in there. I know the right things to say to Christian people, where they'll be happy that I come, but they'll think I'm already one, so they don't have to like be too super nice to me. And then I can just go and I can be unscathed. So I call that being inoculated, right? I was inoculated against Christianity. Just like now, I inoculate people against the flu, right? That kind of thing. Enough of the live virus so that if you see the real thing, your body knows like, oh, I know how to respond to that, right? So that's the church I went to. And I didn't know anybody there. Well, I ended up talking to a guy that is the roommate for my high school principal all those years later. That was actually interesting to me. We're off the script now. I had a script like in my mind about the way church people conversations go. And now we're off the script because that was completely unexpected. And then he invited me to go out with his college and career group, like early 20s, people in their early mid 20s. And my choices were like, I could either go eat dinner with these people or go to grandma's house and watch my aunt fall asleep in her goulash. Like those are choices. And so I went to dinner with those people. And I'm so cynical that I spent that whole time thinking that they're acting like they like each other and they're acting like they're friendly to suck me in. So I want to go to their thing. I got asked if I wanted to play softball. And it had been so long since I'd played any games at all, any sports at all, that I had to think what that meant. But again, it was either go to grandma's house where like nothing's going to happen, or go play softball with these people on Monday. So I did. And I met guys that I had gone to high school with. So I'd gone to a Christian school. I'd gotten kicked out of it at once, but at some point, but I got expelled, and then I got to go back and ended up graduating there. So that's how I knew some of those guys. But when I left after high school graduation, I left like right now. So I connected with some of them. Well, over months, one of them kept inviting me to church, and I don't want to go, and he didn't press me. Finally, one day I said yes. That gets me re-engaged to being in church and thinking about building a relationship instead of just following a bunch of rules. And like before this thing started, we were talking about churches wanting people to smoke in the back because we have an appearance we want to keep up, right? This church wasn't that way at all. If you were going to get in at all, you're going to walk through a big cloud of smoke. All the people smoking were out front, which I really liked. Anyway, that got me started thinking about building a relationship instead of just following rules and regulations, following religion, right? I became a contractor. So I owned a roofing, siding, and window business. And my self-image was so low that when somebody asked me that deeply personal, intimate question, what kind of work do you do? I looked at the ground like this and mumbled, "I'm a roofer." Until we went back and forth long enough, until I'm finally looking them directly in the eye and made them understand that I'm a roofer. But by then they're scared and they don't want me to be at their house. That's how low my self-image was, that I couldn't tell somebody, this is the kind of work I do. Do you want me to do it with you? Right? I worked at becoming a successful contractor because if my business was successful, then I would be successful. One of the things that I experienced was that I couldn't direct people, boss people around on my roofing crew like I had done in the military. Because in the military, you're just kind of stuck there. And if you don't like somebody, you only have to deal with them for several years until you finally get a different job. But in the real world, like here, every relationship that we have is voluntary, right? And so I'm just pounding on people, not physically, like that would probably be illegal, but in every other way. Like I was super good at dressing people down, and just eviscerating them with words. So it wasn't very friendly, but it was super effective. And work did get done because then they didn't have to talk to me anymore. But again, it's not very effective. Well, I wanted to grow my business, and I found out that in order to grow leaders around me, I had to first grow the leader within me. And so I was doing that, but I was working at so I was working at developing my leadership skills, but that didn't apply to me, right? So these were all just external things. I'm going to buy a new hammer because if I had a new hammer, I'd be able to go and do that job, right? And that's how I looked at leadership skills. It's just another tool. It's a better saw, that kind of thing. But it wasn't me as a person. So I was still just as black as I was, but I had better leadership skills. And that really means if you have good leadership skills and you have bad character, you're just really good at manipulating people. Well, that's not good. So ultimately, then you fast forward a bit and I sold that business and became a paramedic, and then I became a nurse. And I had learned how to interact with people. In fact, here's a tool that, if anybody else has this trouble that I did, here's a tool. This is the tool that I used. Form, which is FORM. F is family, O is occupation, R is recreation, and M is the message. So it's a real simple structure to be able to build a conversation. Like I had a lot of social anxiety. Like I would just look at the ground and mumble if somebody asked what kind of work I did. So form is the tool that I use to learn how to be able to talk to other people to create a conversation. So I could ask you, if you're married, do you live around here? What kind of work do you do? What do you like to do for fun? Things like that. And the other person would carry most of the conversation. And they would think I was good at having a conversation because I'm just asking questions. And then I got to decide if I wanted to drop M as the message. Like, this was fun talking with you. Would you like to go fishing together? Would you like to, I'll put your roof on, or whatever the thing is, or just not give a message at all. So for other folks who have social anxiety like I did, form, FORM, is the framework that I learned to use to be able to create a conversation. Anyway, so now it's 2020 and like things have happened, and I took my wife on a hot date to bankruptcy court. When I was a contractor, we had 3 defective customers in a row. Whenever I would have success, then I put the success off on, like, these things happened and then I was successful. So it was all outward. And if anything happened that was a failure, then I am the failure. I was never successful. Like, things were successful. My business was successful, like up and down. Sometimes it was, and sometimes it wasn't. And that was all external. But when the failures happened, those were all internal, not because I did something wrong, but because I am wrong. My wife never knew all the times when she almost came home to find me in pieces, in the house. She never knew about those things because I had never told anybody. So it's 2020. I had this conversation with this little voice guy about how much value I have. And that made me start thinking about, well, could that be, like, am I really on the wrong team here? I've really become my own worst enemy. So today I'm part of the Maxwell leadership team. And I live in this book, The 15 Laws of Growth. I don't know how to make it show up. Anyway, okay, it's not going to show up, but the 15 Laws of Growth. And Law 3 says, so I didn't know about these laws way back then, but my grandkids don't know about the law of gravity, but they experience it, right? So the oldest one is 2, and she doesn't understand the law of gravity, but she does experience it. She either obeys it and stands up, or she breaks it and falls down. So I didn't understand about the laws of growth, but I was accidentally obeying them. A lot of times I was intentionally breaking them without knowing it. So law number 3 is the law of the mirror, which says you have to see value in yourself to add value to yourself. And so every coin has, in fact, I got one just for this.
Come back, Steve.
I thought it was my eyes that had stopped.
Oh, he's jumped. Oh, there he is.
You're back here.
You're back, Steve. You froze. You froze.
It's like I got kicked out of the country with a bad passport or something. So began to do things to add value to myself. Right. So today we talk a lot about self-care. I didn't have that language then, but that's the kind of thing I began doing. I changed my environment. I changed the kinds of people that I hung out with. I changed the kinds of things that I did, so that, not so that I would change the things I did. I began to decide I am the kind of person who, like for instance, when I quit drinking Mountain Dew, I don't know how many times I quit over lots and lots of years, but when I finally quit was when I decided I am a person who does not drink Mountain Dew. So it was no longer something about I can't, or I'm not allowed to, or I shouldn't, or any of those things. It was like, yeah, I just don't do that. Like if somebody asked me today, hey, do you want to go and rob the bank with me? Well, the answer would be no, I'm just a person who doesn't rob the bank. Right. So it's just not something that I do. That's how I finally began to defeat things with that kind of logic. I'm a person who, that's who I am. But began work inside, building value within myself, and then things outside began to take on the shape that they do because they had like good roots, right? In 2022, my wife and I went to a nurse coach conference. So I'm a board certified nurse coach. It's a specialty in the world of nursing. And on the way to the conference, I began to get the idea that I should talk about anxiety and depression. Like, I don't want to do that. I've never been diagnosed with either one. But the reason is because I avoid the people that give those kind of diagnoses. I avoid therapists, I avoid psychologists, I avoid doctors. Says the guy who is a nurse, right? A mental health nurse at that. But for me personally, so I just avoided those. But the idea wouldn't go away. And from there, it was a short step from anxiety, depression. It was a short step to talking about suicide. And at that point, I had never talked with anybody at all about I've been suicidal. But like Ed was talking about, the way that I say the same thing that he did, you know, if you talk about it enough, it begins to lose its power. The way that I say that is you have to turn around and take the teeth out of the monster. You have to do that yourself, right? So Ed did it his way through digital art and through other things, right? And Sanna did it too, right? Through her way. The way that I say it is you have to just reach in and take the teeth out. Somebody can help you, but you have to actually reach in yourself and take the teeth out. That's how I did it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Steve. Wow, we have learned so much about our frailty, about our strengths, about our weaknesses. And I love that. That's not who I am. Thank you. Are you ready for Q&A afterwards? Steve? Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. And okay, Monica. Introducing Monica Marie Henderson. Monica Marie Henderson is a powerhouse global comedic speaker who emboldens her audience to tap into their own zone of genius to create an impact in the world. She is a wife, mother, mogul, jet setter, and socialite who shares her own personal struggles with social anxiety, failure, and fear to show how to stop being pushed by pain and start being pulled by a vision. She shares how calibrating your life and maximizing your business can help you build a brand and boost your influence. She helps draw a simple path to living a life designed by you, for you, healthy, wealthy, and fulfilled. Monica, our last speaker of the evening.
Yay. Okay, guys. I just have to take a breath. One, because I have social anxiety and these things terrify me every single time. I mean, like every single time I have to get on stage, it's like a whole beast in the room. And so I always say, get in there, slay the dragon, tell everybody you got social anxiety so we can we can just call it out, the elephant in the room, and then we can move on from there. So elephant's there, social anxiety slayed, we can get into the conversation. Yes. All right. So I need you to help me out because as a person who uses my genius and understands who I am, I also realize that public speaking and talking is not something that I'm excited about. This is not my natural habitat. I do not like talking to people. I do not like sharing my story. I do not like doing any of these things. However, I am an introvert who loves to eat. And in order to eat, you have to share because people need to get to know who you are. And therefore, I am here, sitting here, talking to you right now about everything that's happening with me and how I got to this seat in the first place. Now, I need you to know that I spent the first 12 years of my life invisible. And before you go and put the violins on and start crying for me, Argentina, I need you to know that it was not a problem for me. It was an absolute wonderful time for me. But two things can be true at exactly the same time. I was invisible. I was suffering from social anxiety. And now, at the age of 40, realized that I was actually on the spectrum the entire time, but in the 80s, who does diagnoses people with that if you weren't mute or if you were just some kid who wasn't that bright? They just kind of said, oh, you're just not that bright. It's okay. It's not for everyone. And you kind of get left alone. I wasn't extreme in any way. I was so incredibly plain and boring and ordinary. And so I was completely under the radar.
You're
right?
my sweetest
And now that I
addiction. You're
understand
my
my
strongest
I actually have a great time allowing people into that world and also letting you know that all the crap that you went through is actually for your good, right? Like all that stuff, like how Sanna was talking about all of that drama that she went to, that was for her good. And it didn't seem like it at the time, right? But she was getting superpowers. Sanna, do you feel super powerful? Yeah, girl, I see you. Right? Steve was getting his superpowers. Steve, you feel super powerful now? Give me a thumbs up, so-so. Okay, if you're not super powerful yet, it's coming. Just hang in there a little longer. Ed, what about you? You feel super powerful now? Yes, I see your muscles. That's right. And the reason why is because in the darkness of everything that we're going through, in all of the things that we're going through, you are actually learning about you. You are learning what makes you tick. And it's not what happens when you're at your best. It's what happens when you're at your worst that truly defines who you are, right? So we want to talk about trauma. They've already went into deep, 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 dark places. And so I'm not going to keep us there because we've already been there. But if we wanted to talk about trauma, I got them all too. Pick a card: abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, being called retarded, prejudice. I'm a Black woman who lives in America. I got all the things, right? I got like pick a card, any part. We could talk about any of those and I can go down deep and dirty with you with all of the details of that. But again, two things can be true at the same time. I absolutely lived in chaos and was tortured in my family scenario. And at the same time, I had a brilliant childhood. Now, how is that possible for you to go through all that drama and also see that you had a brilliant childhood? And the reason why I had a brilliant childhood is because my brain is amazing. My brain has a coping mechanism that I wish everybody else had. It's called compartmentalizing. Have any of you ever done that? Compartmentalized? Oh, yes. So my brain, she is fantastic and wonderful and amazing and beautiful and gorgeous. And she's always in the process of protecting me from myself. She's like, girl, I got you. You don't need that. Put that in the box. It's good. No problem. Just focus on this. So when I was 6, instead of focusing on being molested and being like not able to communicate with people outside of my house, I was focused on my definition of success, which was letting these people know that I can ride my bike on my own. And I don't need those dang training wheels, right? And when I was 12, and I was sitting there in a room full of people telling me about an experience that I was there for, completely ignored and invisible, and didn't have my own voice, I wasn't worried about that because I was focused on really deciding, hey, I just learned a bunch of stuff being quiet, listening to all these people talk about their lives and their trauma. And I decided I'm just going to be a really awesome teenager and I'm not going to fall into peer pressure. So I'm going to focus on that. Right. And while I was in high school and my home life was just kind of in chaos and we were moving around a lot and I was trying to like get my bearings and why I was trying to actually, am I frozen? Still here.
You're jittering and freezing. You're jittering and freezing.
How about now? Oh, there we go. We got the fluency back. All right. So while I was trying to live out loud, right, and defy all odds of teendom, right, and really kind of lean into not becoming a statistic, because I could have been with all the abuse that I went through, focused on really defying every expectation of me. I was also at the same time really battling my home life and what was going on there, right? And then when I decided that I was going to be an adult and step out into the world, I was also fighting with this pressure from the outside world of, well, you're this person, so you have to act this way, but I don't want to act that way. That's not me. You don't know me, bro. Back up, right? And so I had these conflicts that were happening. At 24, when I wanted to be a mother and lost my first child and slipped into a depression, instead of focusing on that, I focused on, well, what do I need to do and be in order to be the mom that I wanted to become? And I was able to step into that space and be that one, the woman for the child that I did get to keep, not the one that passed away. Right? And then when I got into my 30s, I was like, hey, I don't know about this wife thing. Up until this point, I never, ever wanted to be married because I never saw a definition of a beautiful relationship. But when I was 30, I was like, I'm such a good girlfriend that I kind of need one person to like experiment on and see if I can be like an awesome wife too. I probably want to do that now. I then decided that I was going to put my energy and success was going to be creating a relationship that didn't look like all of the things that I grew up with, right? And during the whole time, the angst is still there. I mean, y'all all know it. Like you can be successful and also being like, what the fuck am I doing with my life at exactly the same time, right? Like those two things aren't separate. And you're like, oh, I'm great or, oh, I'm not. It's like simultaneously, what am I doing with my life? And also, yeah, it's great. At the same time, right? I was deciding that at 36, that I was going to retire at 42. Because this working thing is too hard and I don't want to do it no more. I don't think I like money that much. I don't think I like money that much. So at the age of 42, I am sitting in front of you in this very moment, letting you know that regardless of what has happened in your life, regardless of what you've been through, two things can be true at the same time. You could have had traumatic things happen to you. You could have had down times. You could have had self-doubt, worry, chaos, fear, outside things happening to you, death, chaos, all of those things can be happening. And at the same time, you can find some joy in exactly where you are in this moment. There's always joy. And if you can tap into that undercurrent of joy and ride out the cycle of rebirth, the cycle of change, you will always come back up to a new space. You will always have a new space to be. But you got to realize that you need to be a co-creator of that change in your life. Now, all three of them already talked about this in some ways, but I'm going to condense it down to a really quick understanding. Everything on earth has anatomy, including change. Did you guys know that? Did everybody know that change has an anatomy? Change has an anatomy, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. And then after I say it to you, you're going to be like, oh, I knew that. I've experienced that, right? So change's anatomy is just this. The first step is birth or rebirth, right? You come into a new beginning, you are here, I am here, right? Then immediately after that, you have to, now that I'm here, what the heck am I going to do? So you have to find a space to understand what the mission is in this new place that you are. So you need to gather information, resources, and tools so that you can begin to build a mechanism on how you're going to reach that success, right? Once you build that mechanism of how you're going to reach success, you then actually have to use it and sustain it for a period of time. Now, here's the thing. When you are sustaining it for a period of time, regardless of what you are in the rebirth of, there's this thing. It is called a shift. And baby, the shift is going to hit the fan. Now, whether or not the shift is a shift in your feelings of satisfaction or a shift in performance, kind of doesn't matter because it's biologically designed to happen this way, right? So you have this shift and it brings you to this awareness where you begin to examine and develop what has happened. You examine what has happened, why do I feel this way, what's going on, and then you develop a strategy on how you're going to change it. Now, what has happened in some of these spaces when Steve and Ed and Sanna were talking about where they got stuck, they were just in this constant state of pain, is they got stuck in one of the parts of the change. They were either too fearful to move forward, or they were really, really deciding that they were going to push into the next thing too immaturely. And that happens with all of us. I mean, has anybody ever felt imposter syndrome? All that is a rebirth where you are either pushed in too early or decided to sit there too long, right? When you decide that you are going to fight change, the change will fight you back. It will get in and start swinging and you will get beat up. But what I have learned is I am much better to have someone grab my hand and pull me forward than I am being kicked in the back. I'm a Black woman in America. I got a lot of anger. You don't want to kick me in the back, right? I really much prefer to be gently guided. And so when I decided and when I learned to actually be a co-creator of the change that's happening in my life, instead of being forced by the pain that's happening in my life, that was when I got to live a healthy, wealthy, and fulfilled life. That is when I was able to calibrate my life and get everything I wanted out of life. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm going to leave it right there because I want you to know that you have choices. You always have choices. So why not choose to be great? That's my time.
That's awesome, Monica. Thank you. Awesome. No one would ever believe, you know how you first introduced yourself? I'm like, speaking.
Co-creator, I got to be here. I might as well be a willing participant of this
Yeah.
experience. I might as well have fun with it. I might as well talk to my homies on the stage. I might as well be here and bring some joy and some light and some love and make you smile. I might as well be fully in this moment with you. It's a choice. I can choose to be scared and petrified and sit back and shrink and be small and hide, which is a great place. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed those invincible years. However, if I'm going to create a change in the world, if I'm going to help millions of people worldwide, understand that it's your birthright. It is your birthright to live healthy, wealthy, and fulfilled. And it's not something that someone has to empower you to do. You already have the power. What you asking me for the power for? It already lives inside of you. If I'm going to help people understand that they already have that power, I can't shrink and be small. I have to be big. I have to be loud. I have to be fun. I have to be interesting. And so I am co-creating this moment with the universe and all of you souls here so that we can share this light with everyone. And all the pain that we went through is not for nothing. It is not in vain. It is ashes that are turned to roses. It becomes the dirt that soils, the soil that fertilizes the acorn, so it becomes the oak tree. It becomes a part of your power as opposed to your detriment.
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Thank you. All right. So now we've heard from all four of our speakers. Richie, unless you want to say anything now, we'll open up the floor for Q&A. So I'll leave that to you, Richie.
No, we can open the floor for Q&A, Carol.
All
I think
right.
that's a good idea.
Excellent. Now, don't be shy. While we've got our speakers here and we've heard from their share, we've heard them share from their inmost experiences from their heart. You can either write your question in the chat, you can put your digital hand up, or you can just speak one at a time. So the floor is now open for Q&A. Don't be shy.
Yeah, I'll share something. How do people feel about faith? Because we've talked about a greater power. There has to be something greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity, hopefully. That is part of the 12-step program. But what constitutes a higher power in your experience?
Okay, several people want to share. I will be last.
I'll bite.
Okay, Steve.
So I work with people all the time from lots of different religious backgrounds. So somebody doesn't have to be, I happen to be a Christian, but like I'm not in sales that way. I don't get a commission for doing the Great Commission. So whether I wasn't thinking about this question until a second ago, so it takes me a moment. But what I'm trying to think about is everybody is going to be worshiping something. Like that's just what we do as people, is we worship something. There is a throne and we worship it. We can choose what to set on the throne. So your question was, what constitutes a higher power? My higher power is my career, the thing that I worship. My higher power is my wife. It's the next trinket that I want to buy. It's maybe this mystical being that I've never met, but I've read his book. Right? But the higher power is the thing that I'm going to devote myself to, because for whatever reason, I think that I should. I think there's a pretty strong reason for the higher power that I picked, and I read his book. But again, I don't have to sell my belief to somebody else. But in order for that person to be true to themselves, then they have to choose what their higher power is and then be true to that belief.
I'm sorry for coming in here. Steve, I want to say something while you're talking about higher power and how you see it. You know, what spoke to me very loudly when you were talking about when you were in the moment of suicidal thoughts and you got interrupted by a job that was assigned to you. And then you did not think of ending your life because you felt responsible to deliver that job. I think that speaks very loudly to many people who have dedicated their life, devoted it to a higher cause, be it helping others come out of trauma, healing, yourself, Edmund, you know, Sanna, or Monica. I mean, you guys are all doing some great work. We're all driving the change. And I think when we submit ourselves to that cause, the negativity kind of, you know, vanishes gradually, or it does not hold the power it used to hold over us at a certain point in life, because we feel responsible to deliver. We feel as if we've been assigned a job by God or the universe or whatever you may want to call it. And therefore, and I absolutely love when you mentioned that you were disrupted by this thought, by this phone call, and you were supposed to deliver something, dispatch something, and you did not think back to, you know, ending your life. I think that's a big analogy and a very strong and wonderful one.
But
Okay, sorry.
my friend Clint wrote a book last year, the year before, published it, called Responding to the Call, Resuscitating the Heart of Man Back to God. He and I were both paramedics. And so he makes a really good analogy of first response, first responders to what we should be doing in the church. Again, this is from my perspective, right? But anyway, so one of my favorite parts of his book is he writes that my relationship gives me identity. My identity gives me value. My value gives me purpose, and my purpose establishes my responsibility. So back to that thing when I was sitting in the back of my semi, I had value and purpose then, and then responsibility when I got the call, right? But that's the whole train. My relationship gives me identity. Who am I as a person? My relationship, in my case, my relationship to God gives me identity. My identity gives me value. I have value because of whose I am. It's more whose I am than who I am, right? I'm just some guy. So it's more my value comes from whose I am. Like I was bought at a price, right? And then my value gives me purpose, just like all of my tools have a purpose. And then the purpose establishes my responsibility.
Monica.
I was going to say when I was 12 is when I got my word. And I think we all come onto this earth with a word, right? And when I was 12, I didn't feel like I was special, right? I didn't feel like I had anything unique about me. I literally was raised by artists, right? My mom's a poet, my brother literally picks up anything and just like can instantly do it, right? And so I'm surrounded by talented people and I don't have any talent, right? And I was trying to figure out if, you know, I don't have these talents outside of me. And for those people who are like, well, I just work, right? I go work in a factory, or I just show up and I do things. Like I don't have a thing. For those of you who are kind of struggling with figuring that out, what I realized was when I saw this word resonated with me, and it was the word muse, M-U-S-E, right? And the beautiful part about a muse is is not required to have any talent, right? Its only job, its only purpose is to spark inspiration and genius in others. And I thought, I could do that. I don't have any talent. I could at least just be in the space in which I can spark inspiration in other people to be great. And I grew up super, super religious. I am not as super religious as I grew up, but I grew up very, very, very Christian. And I remember in all the Bible stories, the only person that I really, really, really connected with was Mary. And it wasn't because she had some baby or whatever. That wasn't it. But it was because it's like, hey, she was just momming and raised someone who could change the world, right? And what space did she have to create for Jesus to actually be bold and emboldened enough to go out and try and change the world in a time in which that was not the cool thing? Like, he was the first influencer before there were all these other influencers, right? And I thought, if she just had to be there every day in support of him and to create space for him to be that, then I could be that too. That's an easy thing for me to do. And so I spent my entire life has always been in that space of, I'm not the one, I'm not Jesus, right? I'm not the one who's going to go out and change the world, but I can create an environment in which people around me feel comfortable enough to lean into whatever their genius is. And that's why my community gave me the name Genius Activator. It's basically Muse grown up, right? And I want people to understand that it is not these big jobs, right? Like, Steve does a big job. He literally has people's lives in his hands, right? It's not a big job that can be your calling, or the thing that the universe is using you for to create change and be attached to. Sometimes it's just giving that person a smile as you bring up their groceries and allowing them to have 10 minutes of peace before they go back in the car with all those crazy ass kids and making, and back into the drudgery of their lives. It can be as simple as painting a building and making sure that that building is vibrant enough so when someone walks past it, it brings them joy. It doesn't mean that you have to do something giant. It could sometimes be the smallest acts, the tiniest things that will make you really have a thing. And if someone can just find, even if you're just like, I'm going to look at every person that I walk down the street and I'm just going to tell them one thing that I like about them as I see them. Nice shirt, nice shoes. You're looking great today. How you doing? That can even be a higher calling. It doesn't have to be something giant, right? Steve's right. You do need something outside of you to pull you into a need, but it doesn't have to be giant. You can step out in a very tiny way and make a huge impact in someone's lives, because you never know what that person is going through. You never know what the one thing was that you said that made them feel better, right? That like allowed Steve to not kill himself that day, right? That told Edmund, it's okay, I'm just gonna do it, I'll quit tomorrow, right? I'll stop doing this tomorrow. Or Sanna, like, I'm gonna get out of this. I'm gonna get out of this because I saw someone else, right? You never know what that is. And so if you can walk every day, understanding that the littlest things that you do to bring light into someone's life could actually be the thing that changes a Steve who comes out and now is like really sharing to people how they can come out of this mental health stuff, right? Or Sanna, like all of these people who you heard from today. It's sometimes the calling, the little whisper that he said, and that was the part that I picked up on, Ritu, he said there was a little whisper that was like, where's your value? That little tiny whisper, that was God, right? That was the thing that we always forget. Even the one that says, don't forget your umbrella, and you forget it. That is that higher power.
Yeah, there's so much I could say about higher power. I am a woman of faith. I am a Christian. And as Steve says, I am what really gives me the ability to be me, the confidence, is that remembering whose I am and the calling I've been called to. And that spirit inside that spoke to Steve is in us, and just it's a relationship, and I speak to that spirit within me because a relationship has to be two-way, not just one. So there's so much I could talk. Ritu knows. There's so much I could say, but this is not the platform. So yes, so Ed, that's where my higher power, I believe my higher power is, and who he enables me to be. So I hope that's answered your questions, Ed. And I know Ian wanted to ask a question earlier. I don't know if it's related to what Ed has asked, or separately?
All it was just amazing hearing all these stories from the four of you. I must confess, I know you don't know, apart from Sanna, I know you don't know anything about me, but I'm not going to tell you that now anyway. But I've learned a lot as well this evening, and it's just absolute congratulations and well done to each one of you for being as open and as honest and as who you've been during this process tonight on this call, and thank you.
And could I just ask the speakers, please put the links in the chat, your links in the chat. Now, Ed, I didn't know how to finish yours. Ed, the head Flanagan, is it .com.co.uk?
If you type into YouTube Ed Flanagan and Co, maybe, because that will lead you to my channel, which I haven't gone public with yet. Yeah, Edmund. I can't put it in the chat because of my dyslexia. I'll just mess it up and the screen will go blank. I know it, so I'm not touching anything because that's my experience.
Oh, let me mute myself while I type.
Can I just say to Sanna, when you spoke earlier, the word synchronicity, you use, and my higher power is not religious based. It is a part of everything, like karma, call it whatever it is, but it's definitely stars lining up. And I believe that I'm responsible for lining those stars up. If I do good things will happen. I know, I truly believe that. When I was not a nice person, I did bad things happened. The last 15 years, I've changed my philosophy on life. I'm now a pacifist, you know what I mean? And that's not religious led, that's just my experience, synchronicity, the universe or whatever. I'm an agnostic.
Yeah, well, I am very spiritual, but I don't talk about it that much. I think that people with my messages, they can like kind of read between and stuff, but that's what I am, and I have an extremely strong faith. But I don't, I see it as like love and unity, consciousness, and I resonate with God, with Source, with everything that is aligning with that. I don't have any specific that this is what, but obviously if it's something that is dividing or that it's like hierarchy, I don't believe in that. And from my experience, I didn't know, I didn't have a belief system. I really didn't. The only thing that I used to have was that I believed in everyone else. I wasn't questioning anyone in my life. I believed that everyone was smarter, everyone knew the answers better than me. And I could not figure things out for myself. So that was always like, give me the answers, help me. Maybe I had this like learned helplessness in many ways because I didn't believe in myself. And I believe that the connection with everything that I have experienced in my own journey has been that when I aligned back to my truth with my heart, that's when everything changed and I started believing myself. I connected to everything and I was like, oh my God, there's this higher intelligence that I'm like connected to. And like I said, I resonate with a lot of names we can give it, but ultimately I think it unites us all, that it's the same. And in forms of synchronicities, they've been so beautiful. Every day I have those. And I also here with Monica, I wanted to say that I don't share my story a lot because I live in the present. So I don't go back, I don't dwell on these things. For me, it was very difficult today because I was like, I don't think of them. I know that they're part of it, but kind of to go through it again I don't consume negative things. I don't consume things that don't uplift and strengthen my sense of self, because I know that with that energy, I'm no good. What good does it do to me? At the same time, I'm very aware when there's something that needs action, and something that goes against what is right, and causes me to feel distress. But that's only an indication, because I feel so strongly, and my sense of what's right and what's wrong is now very, very strong, stronger than it used to be. And with me aligning back to my heart and believing in myself and keeping my own connection strong, which is always connected to a greater power, that's how I can then get through everything, and be of the best service and energy to everyone else. And that's what I believe we all like, it's just a matter of connecting to ourselves and our hearts. We always find a peace with that.
I felt it. I felt your heaviness with it, of like, I'm uncomfortable going back here because I don't know, I no longer live here. I felt it when you were talking, for sure.
Yeah, even though you've no longer lived there, for me, no experience is ever wasted if we can help others with it. And you said you don't have the regrets because it's who it's framed you to be now. And other people need that helping hand on their journey too. So even no matter how traumatic it was, there are people just like you, obviously not exactly the same circumstance, who could benefit from your experiences and look at it in a positive way instead of a negative way. It's now a strength because you're no longer that person. So there are two sides of looking at it. That's my penny's worth.
Any of y'all happen to ride motorcycles?
No, Steve, I never learned to ride a pedal bike.
Oh my goodness.
I'll need stabilizers now.
I used to be obsessed by speed and riding motorbikes, and yeah.
All right. I saw your picture online of that scooter, whatever it is.
Yeah, my little chariot.
I don't know if it's quite the same. So I brought up motorcycles to talk about looking at the past. When we ride a motorcycle, or when I was in my initial training course, they talked about where to look. So if you're going to go around a curve, you have to look through the curve to where you're going. If you look down, then you'll go down. So if I want to turn to the left, I'm going to look down like I'm watching where I'm at right now. I'm going to go down. I'm going to fall. Or if I spend too much time looking behind me where I've been, then I'm going to go down too. And I think that relates to where we should be spending most of our focus. I think there's value in yesterday, because so law 10, right? Again, I live in the book, The 15 Laws of Growth. Law 10 is law 8 is the law of pain. And it says that good management of bad experiences leads to great growth.
You're
So
my sweetest addiction. You're my strongest thing.
And you finally decided to manage those well, right? And then from there, you've grown a lot, right? So that's a great example of that law in application. And that's the value that yesterday has, because we all have a yesterday, is picking through the rubble of what that yesterday was, that bad experience, managing it well. What valuable thing can I pick out of that? And then from there, you can grow. In fact, I experienced that in my motorcycle class after we were taught that lesson about not to look down. I did the thing that we were told not to do. I also hit the front brake, which we'd also been told not to do. and then demonstrated for the class what happens when you do that, which is the eject button. And the instructor walked over to me, like I flew several feet. We weren't even going fast, but I flew several feet. And the instructor walked over about the time I got the bike picked up. We were far enough away from everybody else and no one else could hear him. They thought that he was saying something inspirational to me. And the instructor said, "That was really dumb, wasn't it? How did you like that?" Like, okay, try to start the bike now. I bet it'll work. Okay, good luck. That worked. It might not work for everybody, but it worked for me. And I've never done that again. That's the value that yesterday has.
I also wanted to add that I believe also, I think I don't remember who mentioned about there's no accidents. I greatly believe that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think that when we remember that, that gives us strength instantly, that there is a reason. We don't always get it at when things are happening, but to just have faith and believe that it will come, it will all make sense in some point. And that the contrast of things, that the more of diversity that we have had and like stuff that has felt like, uncomfortable and made us grow, the more it will make us stronger. And the sense of like gratitude just grows from it. And the contrast, when we get on the other side of things, it just like grows. And I also think that we are just as strong as whatever comes to us. And to remember that too, that for some reason, that when something feels horrible or something unbearable, that you have to like go through and process, that you are strong enough to get through that. And that's why it is happening to you, and you will get through it. That's also something that I have to remind myself time after time, but it always helps. It always helps.
Oh, Sanna, you did say when you finished there was something you forgot or you ran out of time to bring up. Can you remember?
Yeah, but I think it's you know what, I think it's fine. I have obviously many elements of the story that could have been said, but I think that if you can read between the lines a little bit, like of what I mentioned, it had to do with one of my addictions. That was like the smokeless tobacco, that I just felt like I wanted to just be completely open, because that was like something that I was so guilt-driven, was that it was the trauma that happened to me when I was little, but then the smokeless tobacco, that because I had that kind of, I was hiding it. People knew I kind of used it. But the biggest thing that I was so, like the worst thing that I felt was that that I had to get out of my system was that being a mom is the most important thing in my life. And throughout my pregnancies, I could not stop it. And that was something that killed me. And I always felt like that I didn't deserve my children when they were born, completely healthy. And my mother smoked when I was pregnant, or she was pregnant with me and with her, with my sisters and brother too. So I kind of justified it and thought that, okay, well, it's not in the lungs or something. But I hid it. And when everything started go crazy in my life, when I was breaking free from the second marriage, I felt that I was like deserving everything that was happening to me because of all these choices that I made. And I had this thing that I had to come clean with every single thing. Everyone has to know all these horrible things that I've done. I have to come clean and confess, and went everywhere and just said that this I've done this, I've lied about this, I'm a horrible person. I deserve not to have anything, and this, I deserve to get all this. Like that's how I felt. But I will say as a mother, that when my children, my went through with me this time in 2015. My two oldest sons were then like 10 years old and 7, and I said to them that, you know what, I have something I have to tell you. And I just said, and I was crying, and I said, I love you so much, and I'm like, I want to like stop it, but this is what I did, because I know they were like little and everything, but unconditional love from my children at that moment. And my mother and my father was there, like, what the hell is she doing? Like, you don't have to tell these things. I was like, yeah, no lies. No, I want everything to come out. I cannot live with anything. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I'm so sorry. Like, and my sons were like looking at me, and they were like, well, do you want to quit? Like, and just came like kind of hugging me and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like, you know, I was like, yeah, I do really want to quit. And yeah, about sobriety too, I left like everything. I'm completely been sober, of both like don't drink, don't use any like substances. I think the last drink I had was in 2019, and had a long time before that already gradually stopped drinking. But that was also something that was part of my journey, like really getting my power back, not wanting to be.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
So sharing that, like now you kind of know like the worst thing.
I think what is obvious is that our recovery is a gift, as much a gift to our families and people we love as it is to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. And on that
And
note,
to the world, Ed, and to all the people you're serving now. Beautiful. I mean, these stories that have been, Carol, can I go? Sorry.
of course, I was going to hand over to you to close out anyway.
Thank you. Now, I just want to say, you know, it's very apt to the title we've got here, stories that are inspiring and resilient. And a big, massive thanks to Ed and Steve over the ladies, and for no other reason that men go through these strengths, these struggles, many of them, and they don't feel safe enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
And while we putting stories out of struggle and then coming out the other end, it's truly inspirational to those who may be going through stuff now and feel that they will not be seen as good enough if they spoke about it or seeked help. So, Ed, as I said, your recoveries are not just a gift to yourself and to your loved ones and to your families. It's a gift to the whole world. It's a gift to everyone you meet, everyone you cross paths with, to us, to literally to the universe. So thank you so much. Sanna, what you've gone through, oh my God. And although you say you're not very keen on sharing your story, I assure you that anybody who comes across your story is going to take inspiration. So I am a big advocate, and so is Carol, I believe. We are big advocates of sharing stories, and therefore this platform, because when we share stories, we're not just tapping into our past, we're not just looking backwards, we are assuring the strength we hold now, we're assuring the space we hold now, not just for ourselves, but anybody who hears your story, comes across it and feels, oh my God, I'm going through something similar, or the degree of what I'm going through is much lower, but if she can do it, I can do it as well. And unfortunately, that's how the human minds work.
Yeah.
And we are totally, truly blessed, you know, for Carol, thank you so much for bringing all these wonderful people to this platform who have shared these beautiful, inspirational stories with us tonight. Monica, for instance, look at how lively she is and what a live wire. And thank you, Monica, although she's left the room, but I want to say a big thank you to her as well. So thank you, everyone, for sharing your evening with us, or wherever you are, whatever time of the day you have shared with us. These couple of hours mean a lot. Please do come back. Please stay connected. We are on various social media platforms with our name Kaushale UK. We are committed to bringing people together, to sharing our stories, to inspiring people and to helping them change for good for whatever little we can do. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Yes, Ed, sorry, before we go.
The Lord's Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Bye for
Thank
now.
you. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
You're my sweetest addiction. You're my strongest.